Good evening. Although you only know me as employee number 030902, my name is Matthew Conley. I've taught at Travell Elementary School for the last 15 years. I'm a parent of two toddlers. I live in Northfield, New Jersey. I'm a member of the negotiating team for the REA. Tonight, I'm going to speak to you about the fact that this board has stated that they do not need their employees' time. This fact was clearly stated by their attorney during the fact-finding hearing last Wednesday. Why did the board pull all proposals requesting more of their employees' time off the table? It is clear that this board is not looking to settle a mutually agreeable contract. This board has eliminated any opportunity for the teachers to bargain more time for an increase in pay or relief in medical contributions. You have removed any ability to form a compromise. But I guess we can look at this another way. Perhaps this board is claiming that they don't need or want more time from their employees. The actions of this board make an attempt to devalue the time teachers invest in their students and their schools. This board is trying to justify their fair proposals to reduce their employees' compensation both in net pay and in benefits. Perhaps you feel your actions are fair because you believe the time teachers provide in service to Ridgewood should only fit within the parameters of their contractually agreed 7-hour and 35-minute workday. But I'm curious then, how do all the papers get corrected? Who returns the phone calls? Who plans the field trips? How do the SGOs get evaluated? As you well know, the list could go on and on. But in time is no longer of value to the Board of Ed. We almost wonder, what is the value of an education that doesn't receive the time from its teachers? The board has stated that the teacher time is irrelevant to negotiations because it does not add to the revenue at the bottom line. But what if our time adds more than value? How should the time I spent with my students on October 8th of this year be valued? Let me explain. On October 8th, I was working in my classroom during my duty-free lunch. My class of 24 children were having indoor recess due to bad weather. As the students played, I tried to review my plans and organize materials for the afternoon's lessons. I tried to concentrate on essential understandings and whether my instructional techniques and differentiated activities would reach their intended goals. So I barely overheard the loudspeaker cut through the children playing to announce a school lockdown. The children who had been well-trained understood that it was time to shift their priorities and stop play. I know that although this time it was probably a drill and that giving up my instructional planning time would make my afternoon's lessons more difficult, I too shifted my priorities because I knew at this time I had to lead by example. So I locked the classroom door, I drew the shades, I huddled in the corner with the classroom where 24 10-year-olds were going to try and remain quiet. That afternoon, my class and I spent 45 minutes in agonizing quiet, whispers, and hand signals. We did not know the facts of the lockdown. We were left to wonder what threat awaited us just beyond the small, thin wooden door that kept the threats at bay. We waited huddled in the closet, in the corner, under tables, and listened. It was unnerving to hear footsteps in the hall, even worse to hear the jiggle of the handle on the doorknob to the classroom. I can remember the cold chill running over me as I wondered, did I actually lock the door? And what would come through if I had not? At this time, I remember stretching and steeling myself for the worst-case scenario. I began looking around the classroom for any objects that I could use to defend the children huddled on the floor. Safety scissors, a pole that's used to open the window locks, the table and chairs near the door. The footsteps, luckily, kept moving along, but never identified themselves. My instincts caused me to scan the faces of the children sitting in that room. They had remained quiet, but they looked very distraught. I calmed myself and I focused on the children. I took a moment to consider what would I want if my children were in a room where they might be spending their final moments with someone other than me. I decided that my purpose at that moment was to take the time to make each of those children feel important like I knew they were. I spoke softly. I reminded them of the great things they had done. I tried to find words to give them peace in case this was actually a true emergency. I tried to explain what wonderful, special children I knew they were. We sat, we waited, not knowing what was coming next. But because of that time, those children knew they were not alone. The lockdown ended, and we were told that it was a false alarm. Later, after that exercise was completed, I would be asked by administrators and parents alike, how are you able to keep the students so quiet for so long? While this question does point out the skill it takes to be a teacher, it's the wrong question for tonight. The question tonight should be, what did I do with the time I had with those children locked down, huddled in the corner. Now I wonder, does this board have any metrics to truly value that time? I sincerely hope that the board is using the word fair as a play of politics, because if the board believes that offering a pay freeze, non-pensionable money, reduced healthcare coverage, unfair compensation for the time that we serve and provide to the village of Ridgewood, then there truly is no hope for a settlement. But it's not too late for this board to recognize that the teachers of Ridgewood have always, freely given their time to the students they teach, even though we now take home less pay than we did in 2010. No administrator or parent has ever said, stop, you're giving too much, I can't afford this service. Yet, we now are faced with so-called fair proposals that will further decrease our take-home pay and our benefits. You take time from our children and families. You take our kindness and patience for granted. You take, but now is the time to make a compromise that you claim you can't afford. Time is valuable. Settle this contract now.